We're coming on the air with new videos coming out not just from Bucha, but from other towns near the Ukrainian capital that show what the Russians are doing as their troops leave. And it's a gut punch. Investigations called for now into war crimes, all of it triggering new sanctions from the West, including the White House. We'll explain why these may feel more personal to Putin. Plus, Minnesota's Attorney General will not file charges against the police officer who killed a 22-year-old black man, basically saying his hands are tied by the law. Amir Locke's mother saying she's not disappointed, she's disgusted. We're live with that. And we're now learning one of the guns used in that deadly shooting in Sacramento was modified with what's called a switch. It's not legal, and it's really hard for law enforcement to track. We've got more on that in tonight's original. Plus, 6 states are now threatening to investigate the NFL for allegations of discrimination against female employees. The league's pushing back tonight. We'll tell you about it. And baseball finally back after that lockout that nearly canceled the season. We're taking you behind the scenes of this week's MLB return with one of the sport's top reporters in the backstory. That's later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and Vladimir Putin is showing the world he's not afraid of sanctions, even on his own children, because the bombing of Ukraine is still happening even as we speak, as we're trying to get a better picture of the horrific trauma left behind as Russia retreats from the area around Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, like in Bucha. Look at this. Police there say they found another 6 bodies burned. One of them may have been a child. Or this suburb, Borodyanka, where you can see homes torn apart, or in Hostomel at an airport. You see that plane? Look at that. It's been ripped apart. A Ukrainian official says 400 people, 400 are missing from that village. NBC News can't verify that. But President Zelensky is telling Ireland's parliament that 1 in 4 Ukrainians, 10 million people, have been displaced out of their homes. And here's just one example of how terrifying this whole thing is for Ukrainian parents. Do you see this on your screen? That's a mom who wrote her family's phone number and address on the back of her 2-year-old daughter, just in case her family died in the shelling. Gabe Gutierrez is in Kyiv. And Gabe, you know, you've been reporting in one of those cities we just showed, Hostomel, and we described it as a gut punch, and I can hear the sirens going off behind you now. That's what it is. Tell us what you're seeing on the ground.
Hey there, Hallie. Well, yes, we just arrived back in Kyiv, and just a few seconds before you came to me just now, the air raid sirens are going off once again. This is just constant, you know, throughout the day in different parts of Ukraine, and even still here in the capital, Hallie, even though Russian troops have pulled out of this area, and for the most part, much less danger here than there was several weeks ago. But as you can hear, there's just still constant threat. And yes, I did go to the Kyiv suburbs earlier today, Hallie. Hostomel, which you mentioned, wasn't just the airport that was destroyed there. And by the way, the aircraft, the main one that was destroyed there was the world's largest aircraft. Pretty symbolic for Ukraine. Very prideful of that aircraft. The Russians targeted it. That airport was destroyed. But what we saw today, Hallie, was just these Kyiv suburbs, such a large population. You know, these weren't just small towns. These were large suburbs in and around Kyiv, and they are just decimated. It is incredible to watch what these folks are going through, the ones that decided to stay. Hostomel, about 5,000 residents decided to stay. The population there, about more than 75,000, so just a very small percentage. They're still going through so much in other places like Bucha and some other communities as well. We visited Irpin as well. They are still going through those areas, searching for bodies, clearing the area of landmines. Just very painstaking and heartbreaking work.
It is so awful to hear about, Gabe, but important to shine a light on it. Can I just ask you, do you need to go? I'm very conscious of your team's safety, and I know those air raid sirens are going off, and NBC protocol. If you have to go, go, and I won't ask you a second question. You just tell me.
We're good, Hallie. This again, this happens.
Does it happen a lot?
In Lviv quite often, of course. It happened very often in Lviv. You know, at least 5 or 6 times a day, we would hear these air sirens. Now, I've just arrived in Kyiv, but from what I've heard from our team here on the ground, this is a fairly common occurrence here. If we did hear of any shelling behind us or somewhat nearby where we can actually hear some shelling, we would go inside, and we have proper precautions in place. As of now, we are, you know, in a relatively safe location, so I can continue.
It is a vivid example, though, Gabe, of how, you know, the danger is still not over, despite the fact that you have Kyiv's mayor saying, you know, they are starting to open up, that cleanup is starting to begin here, even though they are still under martial law.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, when we toured these areas surrounding the Capitol today, we were struck by how quickly the recovery was beginning. And some of these areas were, you know, very high-end malls, you know, strip malls, areas that, you know, were you know, just a few weeks before the war, I would imagine would have been very heavily trafficked. They're already trying to clean up some of this. They're already trying to perhaps restore power in some of these areas, and that is extremely key. And we went with one of the humanitarian aid organizations that is trying to distribute food to these areas to try and make sure that these you know, residents have some food. Many of them spent more than a month under Russian occupation, and he told us harrowing stories of these troops coming into these towns, breaking into apartments, stealing what they could, what they wanted, stealing everything from food, water, children's clothing, carpets that they had to take out of the apartments that they wanted to line their tanks, presumably because they were so cold in them. We did see from these accounts that these residents told us that the Russian troops seem to be extremely desperate for supplies. That's something they told us over and over again. Yeah. It was just incredible to witness, Hallie.
You know, when you talk about the Ukrainian resistance, right, and the way that they are working to keep up the fight against Russian troops, our colleague Andrew Mitchell, as you know, got this exclusive interview with the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and he was really clear that he feels confident eventually, right, ultimately, and who knows how long it'll take, in Ukraine's chances. I want to play just a second of that.
Can they win?
So ultimately, yes, because what is success? What is victory? It's holding on to the sovereignty and independence of their country. And there is no scenario by which, over time, that will not happen.
I have to think, Gabe, that that is probably a little bit of the mood that you're getting from people that you're talking with in Ukraine, right, in Kyiv and Lviv, that they believe, I would think, that Ukraine can, that this is winnable. This is winnable for Ukraine.
Yes, they do believe that, Hallie. But what I can also tell you is that this idea that peace talks might go anywhere, at least in the short term, that to me, and according to the people I've spoken with, seems very far off. This is not a situation where they would feel comfortable perhaps giving up part of their country, even the Donbass region, or any sort of compromise, or tabling the Crimea issues. The residents in the suburbs of Kyiv that we have spoken with, at this point, they don't seem to want peace. They want justice. They feel that the atrocities committed by these Russian troops, they just can't be forgiven that easily. So yes, peace seems very far off, and yes, the people that we have spoken with do believe that Ukraine can win, Hallie.
Question is, at what cost, right? At what cost to life, and at what cost to the spirit of the country? Gabe Gutierrez, live for us in Kyiv. Gabe, we're really glad to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. It's some of those horrific images that you just saw from Bucha and elsewhere that are specifically what the White House is talking about as President Biden explains why he's putting these new sanctions on Russia, right? Why he's trying to punish Russia even more, banning all new American investment there, and along with our allies, slapping full sanctions, right? Blocking Russia's biggest bank and financial institutions. The U.S. locking up the funds, basically, that those banks hold here. And they're also looking at a couple of new targets, including Vladimir Putin's adult daughters. And let me take a beat here to explain what we know, or rather what little we know about them. As NBC News has put it, these may be the most mysterious first children in modern history. With so much secrecy around his adult kids, Putin himself has never publicly identified them. Maria was born in 1985, Katerina in 1986. And just last year, the younger of the two, Katerina, showed up on screen as a panelist at an international economic forum. The Washington Post has reported that the older daughter, Maria, is a genetics researcher. The very little we know comes from spotty media reports, hardly anything from Russian media for obvious reasons. We're talking about a near total lockdown on any info about Putin's family. I want to bring in now Shannon Pettypiece. And Shannon, I spoke with Ambassador Michael McFaul just within the last couple hours, who knows obviously Russia well, who said Putin's not going to like these sanctions on his daughters because it brings new attention to his family, which he doesn't like, and that it's possible he could be hiding his assets with his kids. One senior White House official told me today that the sanctions are really about accountability here.
Right. And the administration is saying that they have indications, they are not elaborating on what those are, but that Putin could be using his family members to shelter or hide some of his wealth. Historically, in the past, Russian oligarchs, high-ranking Russian officials, they have used family members as well as things like shell companies to evade sanctions. And in the past, many of them have been quite successful at being able to evade sanctions through putting their vast amounts of wealth under someone else's name. The administration clearly saying today they're trying to do everything they can to cut off some of these back doors and end runarounds Russians have tried to do in the past to get around these sanctions, and making a very clear statement here with these sanctions on this Putin's adult daughters. The U.S. also went after other family members, the daughter and wife of Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and family members of the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. And of course, the administration says this is just another example of the way they are trying to tighten the screws around the Russian economy and the most powerful and influential people in Russia. Do they think this is going to make Putin change his behavior tomorrow? No, is what the administration officials are saying. But sustained pressure and building pressure over the long term is what this administration says they believe will help push Putin to end this war.
And building pressure specifically on the financial sector, because with these sanctions, like 2/3 of the financial sector is basically getting hammered there with real questions, right, about whether or not, I mean, Russia already is in an economic crisis, but how prolonged that could be, how much more inflation goes up there, and what that means to Russian people ultimately.
Right. Well, exactly. And these sanctions today mean the largest financial institutions in Russia, they can't do business with the U.S., with the G7, with the EU. Any assets there are frozen. So it's this trend of cutting Russia off from the global economy. Now, the big question remains, is China and India and other economies not part of this group of allies? Are they going to play ball here with Russia, or are they also going to sort of give Russia the cold shoulder? If they do that, then that really adds a lot of weight to what the U.S. and the Western allies are doing.
Shannon Pettypiece outside the White House. Shannon, thank you for that. Back here at home, 26 million people right now are still at risk for more bad weather in the southeast. And yes, this is deja vu all over again, as we say, because a lot of those folks are in areas that got hit badly 24 hours ago. We're talking about homes from Texas to South Carolina just flattened by really strong winds, by hail. Look at some of these pictures, even tornadoes. So today they go to try to clear this all out, right, to try to clean it all up. More storms interrupts them. At least 2 people have died so far in this weather. One woman in Georgia, where a suspected tornado ripped off part of the roof of a courthouse. And a man in Texas died when a tree fell on his house. The tree was going something like 100 miles an hour. At certain points during that storm, the tornadoes got so strong that they lifted up some of the debris, right, 20,000 feet into the air. Think about that. Morgan Chesky is on the ground in Allendale, South Carolina. And Morgan, you're at a place where there is a tornado that created this like 10-mile path of destruction in this town.
Yeah, Hallie, it did, and they think it could go up to 15. They have National Weather Service officials out here reviewing the scope of the damage from the suspected tornado, and they haven't given it a category yet, but it's heartbreaking to see in every direction you look in some of these affected areas. And as we pull out now, you can just get a better idea of how powerful this tornado was when it struck. If you look above me, actually, Ben, if we can pan up, that's a piece of a roof wrapped around a tree limb here. Meanwhile, just beyond it are 2 homes absolutely shredded as a result of this tornado that struck around mid-afternoon yesterday in this small community of Allendale, Hallie. And I had a chance to speak to a gentleman here who was at work at the time. He came back home, and his home's kind of hidden by a grove of trees. He says when he finally turned the corner, nothing was left. And here's what he had to say following this heartbreaking experience. Take a listen.
It's different when it's your stuff and you've seen it face to face.
Yeah.
It's way different from seeing it on TV. Hits you in the gut.
Yeah, he tells me that he's not able to salvage much of anything from that home, but that he does plan to rebuild. And, you know, he now faces a fate that too many people are doing now, Hallie, and that's having to start all over. And yet, we're feeling it right now. We have rain coming back down yet again in this affected area. This is not unique to South Carolina. This is impacting other states all across the South as well today.
What is sort of unique about Allendale, where you are, is that they saw a tornado emergency issued by the National Weather Service, which is a step above a tornado warning. That's pretty rare, right? We don't see that a lot.
Yeah, that warning issued for Allendale, that tornado emergency came just minutes before this tornado struck. And they do it, Hallie, because essentially a tornado warning, conditions are ripe for tornadic activity. A tornado emergency, essentially saying a tornado is imminent, seek shelter now. That's exactly what one woman did in Allendale. Quick story here.
Yeah.
We were told by several people who came to check on Barbara Gill that they couldn't find her in her home. They found her right here, Hallie. She was huddled inside this seat of her car. This is where she rode out the storm and survived. Right now, she's in an Augusta hospital. It's about an hour away from here. She's expected to make a full recovery, but considering everything you see around us and how badly it's destroyed, it's nothing short of a miracle that she made it riding it out right here in her car.
It is incredible when you look at that landscape.
Incredible stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
An amazing story of survival. I know you'll be following up on that one. Morgan Chesky. Morgan, really glad to have you with us tonight. Thank you. Let's bring in Al Roker now. And Al, you know, it's sort of jaw-dropping when you look at some of those images. And you think about that woman in her car. Her house is matchsticks behind her. Yeah. You know what I mean? How bad is this second wave going to be for states like what we just saw that have already gotten hit?
Well, actually, Hallie, we're seeing an expansion now of this severe weather. Take a look. We now have tornado watches for eastern Tennessee. We've got them for northeastern Alabama. We've got it for northwestern Georgia, also central Georgia, and now into the Carolinas. And we've got just to the north of Charleston, we've got a tornado warning going on and severe thunderstorm warnings. So this is really a volatile situation, Hallie. Let's take a look. This is the area. 26 million people at risk for tornadoes. Damaging winds, wind gusts of 75 miles per hour. That can do plenty of damage. 2-inch hail, tornadoes possible. And then tomorrow, this system moves off. But as it does, we are going to be looking for a risk of severe weather from Norfolk all the way down to Fort Myers. The tornado threat, thankfully, low. But again, wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour. This system slowly making its way off the coast. Overnight, severe storms will push off the southeastern coast. But another round of heavy rain for here in the northeast. Ground's already saturated, maybe some flooding, and that continues tomorrow as this system lifts up into the northeast. And there is a risk for coastal areas for the mid-Atlantic as this system all pushes off from Norfolk all the way up. In fact, the heaviest rain probably will be in the northeast and New England, Hallie. Locally, could be 2 to 3 inches of rain. Some areas even a little bit more because these storms have been overproducing. So a real situation that's going to continue to be developing overnight. And again, as we mentioned yesterday, Hallie, the models are suggesting that we're going to be going through this again Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday may be the worst day of all. So, which, as we said, 4 weeks in a row of these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday storms.
And you haven't even talked about what's happening out west, Al. I only have like 20 seconds left, but heat and fire
really
risk.
Quickly, out west, we've got a big area of high pressure, highs 20 to 30 above average. We're talking about forecast records Thursday and Friday from San Diego all the way up to Redding and into parts of Nevada. And that heat's going to continue. And as we move further to the east, you're going to see this risk of fire. We're talking active wildfires right now, but there could be critical to extreme risk right through Texas, Oklahoma, and on into Kansas, Hallie.
Al Roker, we're glad to have you tracking all of it. I know you're a busy man these days. Thank you, friend. Good to see you. Appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.
Over on Capitol Hill, you had some top oil executives facing down some pretty pointed questions by members of Congress today about why gas prices are so high and what needs to be done to get them to a more reasonable place. Lawmakers pointing out these companies are making big money. They are making record profits, even as people are paying more than $4.16 a gallon for gas. The executives all kind of saying the same thing, that they don't have much control over prices and that none of this is really their fault.
We do not set or have significant influence over the price of our products.
No single company sets the price of oil or gasoline. The market establishes the price.
Shell does not set or control the price of crude oil. Similarly, Shell does not set or control the price that consumers pay.
CNBC's Pippa Stevens is joining us now. Pippa, we're glad to have you with us because I'd love a bit of a reality check here, right, on whether that's accurate, that oil companies really have zero control over gas prices.
Yeah, hey, Hallie, this was a contentious multi-hour hearing where the oil and gas companies pushed back against those claims that they're to blame for high oil and gas prices. And as to be expected, Democrats bashed the industry while Republicans bashed President Biden. But there is some truth to the fact that, you know, gas prices are based on oil prices, and that is a global market that is not set by any particular party. And since we both export and import, we are susceptible to those global price swings. Also, these companies, you know, Exxon, Pioneer, Chevron, they don't really own retail gasoline stations. There are 150,000 gas stations across the U.S., and about 60% of those are owned by an individual or family who only owns that specific station. And it's a well-known phenomenon that gas prices go up much faster than they come down. That being said, oil and gas companies are sitting on record profits, and they're really prioritizing dividends and buybacks here. And that was certainly something that they were questioned about by lawmakers, saying, you know, why are you prioritizing that area versus trying to ramp up production to ease some of those higher prices?
So did the CEO say anything that might make us feel better about the prices we're having to pay for gas?
Well, production is increasing. We're still about 1 million barrels per day lower than where we were prior to the pandemic. But the Energy Information Administration expects us to reach more than 13 million barrels per day next year at an all-time high. But this really, you know, it's not uncommon for politicians to point the finger at energy executives when gas prices are high. And it's certainly becoming an issue that's front and center ahead of November's midterm elections. But for right now, WTI did fall back below $100 per barrel today. So hopefully we'll see some alleviation there, but certainly not a short-term fix anytime soon.
Pippa Stevens, thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. Amir Locke's life mattered. That's what Minnesota's Attorney General said today, while also announcing no charges will be filed after the death of Locke. He's the 22-year-old black man shot by a SWAT team officer during a no-knock warrant raid in Minneapolis back in February. The Attorney General, Keith Ellison, says the law only lets them look at the case from the officer's perspective, not the victim's. That was his explanation. But Locke's mother was very clear that is not okay with her.
I am disgusted with the city of Minneapolis. I'm going to mourn my son for the rest of my days on earth. It is not right that it took me 10 hours to bring Amir into this evil, racist, unjust world. You decided that he wasn't worth nothing but less than 9 seconds of a human being.
It was in those 9 seconds that body cam video shows Locke apparently waking up as the SWAT team burst into the apartment. And as Locke sits up, a gun is seen in his hand. He was shot 3 times. Locke's death led to protests across the country. You probably remember those, calling for justice in the case, in which, by the way, he was never a suspect. Shaquille Brewster joins us now with more on this story. Shaq, can you explain a little bit more about what this ultimately came down to for the Attorney General? You heard how upset Locke's mother is about this. What's the explanation here from Keith Ellison?
Well, it's this phrase, this reasonable officer standard. It's something that we've seen play out and we've heard before in trials of officers on stand for deaths of other individuals. But Keith Ellison in this case said through their thorough investigation, they realized that at one point as Locke was coming up, apparently waking up, and he was coming from under the cover, that the barrel of the gun that he had in his possession legally was pointed in the direction of Officer Mark Hanneman. So essentially that officer had a legal right to use that force because he reasonably feared for his life. So Keith Ellison said he's restricted to the legal standards there, and that's the legal standard. You have to take it at the position from the officer in that moment of time.
The AG was also asked today about what many who protested the shooting feel, that this is just another example of police, in their view, getting away with murder, right? What was his response?
Yeah, a lot of frustration that you hear in the community, especially, you know, when you hear the Attorney General underscore that Amir Locke, he was not a suspect in this case, that he was not named on the warrant. He had no connection to the investigation. So there's a lot of frustration over, well, when he dies, why is there no legal consequence? I want you to listen to a little bit of what we heard from Keith Ellison in explaining the community reaction there.
We have a very unsatisfactory situation here, but we have to abide what the legal standards are. This is not the time for people to feel like there's no hope. There is. People should carry forward and continue to try to make the system one we can all be proud of.
You heard the Attorney General later point the finger at those no-knock warrants that are allowed, saying that is a policy that needs to be interrogated a little bit more heavily. But again, you really heard them underscore this is not Amir Locke's fault, that this was a tragedy. Unfortunately, in his words, the system is what allowed for this.
Real quick, Shaq, it doesn't go unnoticed, right, that this is happening in Minneapolis, which is, of course, still dealing with the police killing of George Floyd nearly 2 years ago, a department that is still under the investigation by the DOJ. Talk through any of the changes that they're making after all this.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this morning I woke up to news of the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, instituting and rolling out the new ban on no-knock warrants in the city. Now, there are some loopholes to the bans and there are some reforms there, but essentially it says that the Minneapolis Police Department cannot apply for or execute any no-knock warrant, and that for any warrant that they do execute, they need to knock and announce and wait at least 20 seconds or 30 seconds if it's overnight in the overnight hours. There's some other reforms that are there in terms of how they enter different apartments, but there are also some loopholes there because we've heard a ban on no-knock warrants before in the city of Minneapolis before the death of Amir Locke. So there are some loopholes if someone needs medical attention, for example, in that apartment. So there's some skepticism to the new rules that are out there, but you get a sense that these are officials trying to get ahead of the frustration over the announcement today.
Shaq Brewster live for us on that. Shaq, thank you. Still to come here on the show, the NFL, have you heard about this? Facing the threat of another investigation. We'll tell you more about that. Plus, you getting ready to buy a home? I have some maybe not so great news for you. Mortgage rates are up. But hey, it's not all bad news. We'll tell you why some economists say it could actually be a good thing. And Rihanna makes her debut on an exclusive list that includes the company of Jay-Z and Kim Kardashian. More on her big first coming up. Late this afternoon, you've got the NFL responding to a half dozen attorneys general calling out the league, telling them they've got to get a handle on allegations of discrimination against female employees or they will face an investigation. The NFL saying they have more work to do, but they're looking forward to sharing the policies, practices, and protocols they've already implemented to maintain a respectful workplace. This is after a letter that the New York AG, Letitia James, sent, along with 5 other AGs, that references more than 30 former employees who told the New York Times about a workplace culture that is, according to the letter, overtly hostile to women. It says the NFL promised to take gender violence seriously and improve the culture for women, but they say recent allegations suggest you have not. They also refer to the Times reporting that some female employees were made to repeatedly watch the video of former NFL player Ray Rice attacking his fiancée in 2014. They also described stuff like unwanted touching, being passed over for promotions, being pushed out for calling out discrimination. Rahima Ellis is joining us now with more on this. And Rahima, you know, folks might wonder why New York. The league is headquartered in New York. That's why it seems Letitia James took the lead on this. But you have 5 other attorney generals signing on. And the threat is very real, right? That they could face an investigation if they don't start to show what they're doing to improve the culture for women.
A very real threat. Not only Letitia James, as you point out, 5 other AGs, including the one in Illinois, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington states. They're not only warning, but they're saying that they are asking victims and witnesses of alleged misconduct to come forward and file complaints with their offices. And that letter, as you point out, is demanding that the NFL take some action to improve these workplace conditions, or else a letter of warning can turn into some action of investigation, and it could be very broad in terms of what they do. It
feels like we've been talking about the NFL a lot over the past few months, and not because of what's happening on the field, right? You've got that discrimination lawsuit that we covered from former head coach Brian Flores. You've got, where I live in Washington, right, that congressional investigation into the football team here and its owner. Based on your reporting, are you hearing that this is a moment where the league is kind of facing a reckoning here over the way they treat women and people of color?
It remains to be seen. Certainly there's a tension and there's a spotlight that's being pointed right on the NFL. It's accustomed to being under the glare of the spotlights, but it doesn't like nor does it welcome this kind of attention. Whether it becomes a reckoning is yet to be determined. But as you point out, that congressional hearing that was underway is something that's making the NFL certainly uncomfortable. In fact, I want to share with you some sound from that congressional committee hearing where a woman named Tiffany Johnston, she was a former NFL employee with the Washington Commanders. And back back in February, she, along with several other women, testified before the committee. Listen to just a little bit of what she said.
I learned that placing me strategically by the owner at a work dinner after this networking event was not for me to discuss business, but to allow him, Dan Snyder, to place his hand on my thigh under the table.
Now, Dan Snyder, we should point out, is the owner of the Commanders. And when he heard this, he said, and quote, about the allegations, he said, is quote, outright lies. So absolutely saying there is no basis for the allegations from this woman. And again, whether or not this will come under an even brighter spotlight remains to be seen.
Rahima Ellis, live for us on that. Rahima, thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, right as we were coming on the air, President Biden signed the Postal Service Reform Act, a new law that requires 6-day-a-week mail delivery and says carriers need to enroll in Medicare when they're eligible. That's in addition to some financial relief just generally for the agency. Officials had warned the Postal Service would have run out of cash by 2024, just a couple years from now, if Congress didn't step in and do something. Number 2, 6,000 people have been arrested in El Salvador this week in what officials are calling a war on gangs. We told you last week the country put in place a state of emergency after seeing its deadliest weekend on record. Families there say they're worried about loved ones who might have been taken in. They want the government to give them more information. Number 3, a jury says a man who allegedly ran a sex cult at Sarah Lawrence College is guilty on 15 counts. We're talking about 62-year-old Larry Ray and the college in New York, where students accused him of physical and psychological torture. Charges against Ray included sex trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. Number 4, Arizona's Supreme Court, they are not going to consider a request from state Republicans to stop mail-in voting. This GOP lawsuit tried to argue that absentee voting is, in their view, unconstitutional. 90% of voters in that state actually cast their ballots early by mail. Number 5, a new debut on Forbes' billionaires list this year. And there she is, Rihanna. She's the first billionaire from Barbados, her home country. She's also been declared the world's richest female musician. You know who else made the cut this year? Kim Kardashian, Kanye, Jay-Z, just to name a few. You don't have to be a billionaire to buy a house just yet, but it is getting a lot harder. Mortgage rates are about 5% right now, the highest they've been in years. Our friends over at CNBC say the reason for this and the spike in these rates is crushing the housing market. They say mortgage demand, right, is down 40% from a year ago. Fewer people are looking to get mortgages because of those rates. CNBC's Diana Olick joins us now. Diana, thank you very much for being with us. The timing of this is really interesting. This is the heart of the spring housing market, right? When a lot of people go in to buy houses, to close on them. Explain why this is happening, why we're seeing this spike in mortgage rates.
Well, there are a lot of different technical reasons for it that I won't go to get into, but you're right. This is just the worst possible time to have these higher mortgage rates. And the reason is because people are going to have to dip a lot deeper into their pockets to afford a home. And prices are so high anyway. They're up 20% from a year ago. And what's happening with these higher rates is that when you combine the higher prices for homes as well as the higher interest rates, you're actually paying 38% more on a monthly payment for the same house that you would have paid a year ago. And there are a lot of people who just can't stomach that. So that means we might have a weaker spring market than we might have wanted, Hallie.
Why is this harder specifically for people who are buying a house for the first time, for first-time home buyers?
Well, because first-time home buyers are looking for entry-level homes, and the market is incredibly tight right now, but incredibly tight even more on the low end of the market. That is entry-level homes. Investors have gotten into this market very heavily, and they're buying up the cheaper homes. So when a first-time buyer goes in and they want to get one of these lower-priced homes, they're up against an investor who is more than likely using all cash, and they want to get a mortgage. And no seller is going to take a mortgage when they can get all cash right for the same price or possibly even less. Also, these first-time buyers, they might not qualify for a mortgage now because of these higher rates. Remember, lending is very strict now ever since the recession and the great housing crash. So borrowers who might have, qualified for a loan last year may not at these higher rates now.
So counterintuitive question for you, and I only ask this because we've heard this from some economists, but is there an upside to mortgage rates being over 5%? Like, could a good thing come out of this?
Well, look, I'm always glasses half full, right? And the idea that prices are so incredibly high and are overheating, maybe if we have higher mortgage rates, it throws a little cold water on those prices, right? Because if people can't afford them, sellers can't sell, then the prices have to come down. Now, historically, prices usually lag sales by about 6 months. Right now, we've seen sales start to weaken for about the past 3 or 4 months. So we've got to wait a couple of months to see if this historical dynamic actually works out the way it should. The only problem in this market is that it is, again, historically lean, and there's so much demand for so little supply. So it's going to take a lot for those prices to come down.
Anna Olick, thank you so much for that breakdown. Good to see you. Still to come here on the show, the Select Committee investigating January 6th, actually the full House voting today on contempt charges against former Trump aides. Why this is a significant step from the entire House of Representatives. Plus, citizen sleuths getting in on the action, trying to help the Justice Department with the Capitol riot investigation. But it may not be enough. We'll tell you why. That shooting in Sacramento that killed 6 people and hurt a dozen others may have been made worse by a little part that can make a gun capable of firing more than 1,200 rounds a minute. Vaughn Hilliard has more on that in the original. But first, let's talk about these January 6th rioters and this investigation into the Capitol riot, because there's a lot of them that still haven't been prosecuted by the Justice Department. And now new NBC News reporting is shining a light on why that may be. Citizen sleuths, regular people who are really good at the internet, keep identifying hundreds of rioters, and the DOJ just doesn't have enough lawyers to actually work on these cases. We're talking about folks who get online, they comb through photos, they comb through videos from that day, and they've actually had some luck finding people who the FBI has been looking for. Some in this network of so-called sedition hunters spoke with NBC News anonymously, telling us their work's not even close to being done. One of them saying they're maybe 30% into arrests with more to come, but that may be problematic for a Justice Department that is already overwhelmed. They've been asking Congress for more money to prosecute the people who stormed the Capitol. Ken Delanian is with us now here in the newsroom. Hey, Ken, good to see you. So this is really interesting, right? We're seeing these sedition hunters, and they've been doing this work for a year now, right? Yeah. I mean, since the riot happened. What else do we know about kind of who they are and the commitment to this? Because, again, this isn't just a one-off a couple months after the riot. Right. They're still at it here in April of 2022.
Our colleague Ryan Riley really has the inside track on this. He's been talking to these people a long time, and he says that from their couches and their kitchen tables, they are poring over, they're using internet tools like facial recognition technology and databases to identify some of the unidentified people that are pictured in photos at the Capitol. And they identified somebody last year who assaulted a police officer that the FBI hadn't yet identified. So they've been very successful. Sometimes they get frustrated. Today they tweeted about somebody whose face is clearly pictured spraying bug spray at a police officer and said, hey, FBI, when are you going to arrest this person?
Well, so talk about this DOJ backlog then, because that seems to be where this tension point is. Sure, they can get this information coming in, but you then need somebody to actually go and action on it, to use corporate speak.
So they've arrested, this is the most complicated investigation in U.S. history. They've arrested 775 people, but about 500 of those cases still need to be resolved. And their job just got more complicated because today a judge acquitted one of the minor figures who's accused of trespassing. He claimed that the police waved him in.
Right.
And it was a misdemeanor, but he got acquitted by a judge. So that may make it may sort of motivate people to go to trial, which makes it a lot harder for the Justice Department.
And the reason why that's significant, that's the first not guilty verdict, right? The first acquittal that we've seen in one of these Capitol riot trials.
Yeah, the first one, but it's going to induce people to take their chances, possibly, and that means more resources have to go into these cases.
What are the chances, when we talk about these sedition hunters, if you will, as they've sort of been named, and the Department of Justice, might we see something where this becomes less informal and more formal, like where they're, I don't know if it's a task force or like what would come out of that, but somewhere where they're linked up in a more sort of organized way?
You might think that would happen, but that's typically not how the FBI works. And they have some very strict rules about how they interface with the public. One of the interesting things here, though, is that the FBI, for example, they have strict rules about how they use facial recognition technology that the public doesn't have. So they will continue to cooperate with these folks and take information from them. Attorney General Merrick Garland even praised them in testimony before Congress, but they're not going to name a citizen sleuth task force, for example.
Ken Delanian, thank you so much. Great reporting. And our thanks to Ryan Riley, too, who I know worked on that, too.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. The House of Representatives today is voting on whether to hold former Trump White House aides Dan Scavino and Peter Navarro in criminal contempt of Congress. Why? Because they basically blew off this subpoena from the January 6th committee to testify in front of them about what they knew about what went down on the 6th and the events leading up to the insurrection. The committee says both men played really important roles in former President Trump's attempts to overturn the legitimate 2020 election. So what happens next? The referrals would then head to the Justice Department, where Scavino and Navarro face up to a year behind bars, fines up to $100,000 if charged. But I say if charged because that's the question. Will the DOJ pursue those charges? Joining me now is Hallie Vitale. Hallie, good to be with you. Give us the update. We think this vote is going to happen in the full House sometime in the next little bit, right?
Yeah, sometime in the next half hour or so, Hallie. But what we have seen is Congresswoman Liz Cheney speaking about what leads them to this moment today. We have heard from the January 6th committee about why they are specifically now going after Peter Navarro and Dan Scavino. These are two top White House administration officials. We know that Dan Scavino, you and I covered the 2016 campaign, the early days and years of that first White House. We know that these are people who are close to the president and who were around him in those final weeks and months that he was in office. Navarro himself has been outspoken about the steps that he may have been involved in overturning the election results. Dan Scavino, of course, the keeper of many and all things social media in Trump world. He's someone who has been with the president for many, many years now. Both of them can offer a lot of insight. In terms of where this goes next, though, it really is the open question if the Department of Justice will actually pursue these charges. But what we expect to see in the House now is something that we've seen a few times before already, the full House voting on this contempt referral, and then it's really up to the Department of Justice. We've seen the January 6th committee pressuring Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, to do more, to act more quickly. We know these guys are up against the clock. At the same time, though, it's an open question of if and when he's actually going to do anything on that.
Hallie, to be clear here, even if the DOJ does play out this process to its fullest extent, right, there is nothing that would then require any of these folks, Scavino, Navarro, Mark Meadows, Steve Bannon, et cetera, to actually give the information to the committee that the committee wants.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, there's also the added wrinkle here. We talk about them in the same bucket because all of them have had contempt referrals. But Steve Bannon is a different case than Mark Meadows and now Peter Navarro and Dan Scavino. Those three guys were actual White House employees. There is an argument that they can make about executive privilege, despite the fact, though, that the Biden administration is saying there is no executive privilege to have here. Bannon is a different case because he wasn't working in the White House. He was just an outside ally of the former president, having those conversations with people like Roger Stone and others to overturn the election results and, of course, those false slates of electors. All of that is part of the January 6th committee's work. But when you talk about actually getting these people to give the committee information, it's really hard to see how that ends up happening, even as these referrals go out the door.
Hallie Vitale, live for us on Capitol Hill. Hallie, thank you very much for that developing news. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, rounds of ammunition found at the scene of that shooting in Sacramento that killed 6 people. Why police are now looking more closely at a small switch on a gun, potentially. Plus, Jussie Smollett behind bars, new video revealing what those first moments were like for the actor after he was sentenced for staging a hate crime. That's in The Local, next. Guess what? Do you care about baseball? You're in luck. It's finally baseball season after that 99-day lockout. We've got some details on what's new for the MLB this year when we get to the backstory with one of the sport's top reporters. But first, NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. And because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Midwest Bureau, look at this new footage. It shows Jussie Smollett's first moments in prison. What you're seeing is the former Empire actor getting booked into Cook County Jail in Chicago. Remember, he was sentenced to 150 days last month for staging a hate crime against himself in 2019. Smollett still says he's innocent. From our Washington Bureau here, a COVID outbreak for some D.C. A-listers after this year's Gridiron dinner. Among those who attended testing positive, Congressman Adam Schiff, Joaquin Castro, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, even Attorney General Merrick Garland. All of it happening just a few weeks before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which has a much bigger guest list. And from our West Coast Bureau, Palm Springs City Council approving a plan that would give monthly payments to transgender and non-binary people who live there. No rules on how the money can be spent, no strings attached. A report shows that group is more likely to experience homelessness or discrimination, so the city's hoping the program could be a big step to try to help folks out. We want to bring you now tonight's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. Police now say that at least 5 shooters were involved in last weekend's violence in Sacramento, the shooting that left 6 people dead. They're now describing this whole thing as gang violence. And one discovery, police say, is that one of the men attached a so-called switch to their gun, something that is illegal, something that lets it fire much faster, much more quickly. Vaughn Hilliard tonight is investigating how easy it can be for somebody to get their hands on this illegal part. And we've got to warn you here, the story does include some loud gunfire.
The rapid-fire staccato of an automatic weapon at the hands of an alleged gunman, killing 6 this weekend in Sacramento and wounding 12 others. The succession of shots from a manipulated handgun.
You can literally fire 30 rounds from a Glock machine gun conversion in the space of about a second and a half. And the consequences are just devastating.
That is what happened on these Sacramento streets. Police saying they found a Glock handgun converted into an automatic weapon, essentially a machine gun. More than 100 shell casings found at the crime scene. All it took was adding this part, referred to as a switch, onto the handgun.
For someone that has not built one of these switches onto a Glock before, how long would it take them?
It would take approximately 15 minutes. It's not a complicated operation, and that's one of the difficulties for law enforcement.
Scott Sweeto is a retired senior executive for the ATF.
How prevalent are these switches when you arrive to a crime scene?
We didn't used to see these things very often. Now, unfortunately, you see them all the time. And the reason for that is they're very often made in China. They are imported illegally, either by being sold on the dark web or just sold outright.
The ATF says that between 2020 and 2021, they've seen a 5-fold increase in modified gun seizures nationwide. A switched gun was used in a shootout earlier this year in Houston, where 3 police were wounded.
Officers described it as an automatic, a fully automatic weapon.
Switches are outlawed across the U.S. under federal law, except for individuals with a special license from the ATF.
It can be up to a 10-year felony in federal prison for just possessing something like this.
But if an individual seeks to use it in a crime, the consequences, like in Sacramento, serious and deadly.
Vaughn is joining us now live. So, Vaughn, as you talked about in the piece, it's hard to track these parts down, but talk about what law enforcement's trying to do to try to stop that from getting into the streets.
Right. This is why it is so difficult for law enforcement, because what is happening is that these manufacturers in China are mailing these in bulk. So you have these U.S. buyers who are able to distribute them on this black market. And that is where the ATF is trying to track down and trying to place the source here in the United States of these bulk purchasers who then go and sell and distribute them to individuals, hypothetically, like this individual here in Sacramento. That is where you're talking about, much like ghost guns here, you're talking about these parts that are easily being able to be assembled here and are deadly here. And yet ATF just in the last year notably has had several arrests of these major purchasers here in the United States. But of course, when we're talking about these coming to the U.S. in hundreds of these switches in these shipments here, that is where it makes it so difficult, and why you just noted there that there's been a 5-fold increase in these last years in the number of these that have been recovered, what makes it so difficult.
Vaughn Hilliard, live for us. Thank you, Vaughn. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hallie.
Still to come here on the show, we got to talk about baseball's opening day and how this season is going to look different for the fans, for you, and for the reporters. We've got the backstory next. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And in less than 24 hours, it'll finally be time to play ball after the 99-day MLB lockout we covered here on this show that almost canceled the season. Well, now no more drama, gang. Well, no more off-the-field drama, right? Now it's just the game drama. And here's what's changing for players and fans. Both leagues now have the designated hitter, and each league gets another playoff team, plus tech to try to cut down on cheating and make the fan experience better. Plus, new ways, we have to mention, new ways to stream the game, including on Peacock, which you may or may not be watching as we speak. Another thing that's back, reporters in the clubhouse. They're finally going to be able to get face-to-face with players and coaches again after the pandemic kept them apart for a couple of years. One of those reporters is Tom Verducci, senior baseball writer for Sports Illustrated. Tom, we're so glad to have you on the show tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I got to share a quick story because I don't cover sports, as you know, right? I cover politics, which is a very different kind of game at times, if you will. But my very, very first job ever, I was an intern for WBAL, and my first gig was to go stick a microphone in the face of Rafael Palmeiro, who was playing for the Baltimore Orioles, which I share to say, getting in the locker room, right, getting in the clubhouse is important, getting face-to-face with these players. How do you expect that to feel a little bit different for you this year?
It already feels great again, because the last couple of years, I'm glad we had Zoom, right? It was better than nothing, but it's not really having a conversation with somebody. It's a very formalized interview.
Totally.
So I felt it right away in spring training that you're able to have face-to-face conversations with people. And that to me is so important. And you know this, Hallie, when you're dealing in the political world as well, relationships are so important. Information is the gold mine. But to get there, you need trust. You need to establish relationships. You really can't do that over Zoom. I'll give you a quick example. In spring training, I sat down with Juan Soto, the great hitter for the Washington Nationals. And for an hour, we just sat there and talked hitting. I actually was able to ask follow-up questions, which you're not able to do oftentimes on Zoom. And I got to know him a lot better. And he told me stories that I know I would never have gotten from Zoom. So if you're a baseball fan, you're going to get closer to the game now that the clubhouse is opened up again to reporters.
It's such a good point, too, about, the source building or the relationship building when you're in person versus not. You were just a baby, I know, when you covered the 1994 lockout, but you did. And you covered, I know, this lockout, broad strokes, that we just saw this season. Can you talk about the difference in covering the two? Because I wonder how much the direct access that owners and players especially have on social media makes a difference as they're trying to get their messages out and go through this season.
Yeah, Hallie, I thought it made a big difference this time around. I thought in 94, most people were against the players. They saw them as a little too greedy. They were overpaid. But I think this time around, it was flipped. And I think it's because most of the players use social media a lot more than, say, the owners do. And they got their messages out there. And I think, again, it gets back to getting to know these people, players, as people rather than just statistics or two-dimensional baseball cards. And I think for the players to get out there and say, hey, this is what we're fighting for, the fans got it. And I think it flipped to me. I think there was more support for players than owners this time around.
We're almost at a show, but you've seen a lot, like ups and downs of the sport over the decades that you've covered this game. What kind of season do you think we're in for now?
An exciting one. You mentioned the expanded playoffs, so we'll have better games in September, even before we get there. Now we're all looking for essentially Act 2 of Shohei Ohtani, the most exciting player on the planet. And with a healthy Mike Trout, who knows what they can do? And you mentioned technology, too. I really feel coming out of this CBA talks that baseball is turning a corner. It's going to be faster. There's going to be more technology, more fan-friendly innovations in the game.
Tom Verducci, we're so glad to have you with us. Good luck on opening day. Really appreciate your time. And appreciate all you for joining us this hour. You know we're going to have more for you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.